Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, what bring your moment? It's not a normal moment because normally, like I had said off air to you, I normally ask people about their moment ahead of time, but yours kind of is a lifelong journey. You started out with a certain body type when you were younger, and
I
you
did.
and you kind of realized that you were a little different than everybody else.
Than most people, yeah. And I guess nowadays I realize I'm not that much different because as I came to understand body type, the world is full of people who aren't the standard human body that when you go and see your doctor, that they are judging you by. Until I started my research, I didn't know that. So every time I would go in and see my doctor, because I was such an active kid, I was always well within my safe BMI weight range. So I was normal. But I had skinny fat all over my body. And as a young kid, it's hard to say, well, you must have starved your body when you were losing weight and you lost muscle mass when you were losing weight. When even then, even one of the things that I get from a lot of people, especially pro fitness people and dietitians, is, well, when you lose weight, the body it will consume muscle and muscle mass, and the science really doesn't back that up for anyone under the age of 40. So what the science says is that if you lose weight safely and you're not starving your body, the body will always burn fat and calories consumed first. So whenever I would go and see my doctor, again starting around age 8, uh, I would ask, hey, where's all the muscle and muscle mass that when I look at any standard scientific human body anatomy book, body type 1 image found in any scientifically approved human body anatomy book, there's this image that everyone can see in their mind's eye that has all the muscle and muscle mass fully developed. And my body didn't have all that muscle and muscle mass. And when I was 8, the doctors would say, well, just give us some time and you'll grow and the muscle will grow. Well, 10, 12 hit and puberty hit and more fat grew and there wasn't the muscle and muscle mass. And I had to quit sports. I tried switching from soccer, which I was great at when I was young. But as I grew, because I had all this fat on my body and I didn't have the muscle, I couldn't run as fast and I just couldn't compete with all of the other players out in the field. And I worked extremely hard. I was out doing jogging daily, and I even started lifting weights early, yada yada. And I had this skinny fat all over my body, and so nowadays I have a better sense of it. But then it was just really frustrating because there was no answer for it, and because I was always within my safe BMI weight range, it was normal. So I'll sort of pause here and see if I'm making any sense and if you have any questions for me.
No, you're making total sense, and from my own knowledge, and I'm not. This isn't really talking about weight. This is talking about a thyroid issue, which it deals with weight. The doctors, they run a blood test, and if you are in normal parameters, then you're fine. We're not going to run the full panel because your 2 basic tests say you're normal. However, if your other ones say you're abnormal, well, we haven't diagnosed that, and you'll live with this for years and wonder what's going on.
Right.
So I get the whole, this is normal for you. And it's like, but is it? It's not really normal. And I'm not knocking the medical field. I'm not. It's
Me
just
either.
it's just
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like, just like school, not everybody learns the same. We're not all, we're individuals and we're made to be individuals, but yet certain parameters in our structured society creates us to be like everybody else, or they want us to be like everybody else. And that's not the
Right.
way our body was made.
It is most certainly not. And I have never been diagnosed with any hormone issues. I have never been diagnosed with any syndrome like Poland syndrome, where half of the body is lacking muscle mass relative to the other. I've never been diagnosed with anything like that ever. And yet again, from age 8 and on, I have lacked muscle and muscle mass all over my body. And nobody in my family, no one that has ever known me has ever disputed the fact that I was a skinny, scrawny, weak kid. I was an easy target for bullies because I had no muscle or muscle mass on my body. And according to mainstream science and medical doctors, everyone is born to a body type 1. Everyone. And the only reason that you're not a body type 1 is because you're eating too many calories daily above your BMR, which is why you have excess fat on your body. And as soon as you lose that fat weight and get down within your safe BMI, you're a body type 1. That's simply not true. And yet, as I sit here now, it has been an extreme uphill battle trying to get people to understand, especially young people, is if you're out on social media and you see all the nonsense that's happening out there with all the fake and photoshopped and filtered images and just all the unscientific nonsense that is being thrown around, they don't understand that there are different body types. And so I didn't understand that either. When I was looking for answers, I looked at the endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph body types, which are total nonsense. There's no science behind them whatsoever. They're total arbitrary, subjective nonsense. Same with the hormone body types. Again, I've never in my entire life been diagnosed with any hormone issue whatsoever. We have hundreds of scientific body type quizzes up on our site, and many of them are the same thing. They are people who are not a body type 1, they're a body type 2, 3, or 4, who have never been diagnosed with a hormone issue of any kind whatsoever. Yet you have out on the internet and even doctors who are pushing these hormone body types, which if the hormone body types were true, then that means that anyone who is dealing with a non-body type 1 body type like myself would have been diagnosed with a hormone issue like you have been diagnosed with, right?
Well, let's be clear about something. Yes, a thyroid issue is a hormone issue. However, when it goes to checking your very normal, your regular hormone issues, you get passed around. Because the primary care doctor is like, well, you really should go see this doctor. And the other doctor says, well, I'm not sure about this. And then if you do that, then you have to do it on this day. So it's not just thyroid. Yes, it's a hormone. But then when you start unpacking all the other possibilities of it, it's like nobody wants to really hammer home what's going on.
Right. And so the term skinny fat is a relatively new term. It's only been around now for the last decade, and it's still a rather gray term in terms of science and the medical field. But from our point of view, skinny fat is cellulite, loose skin, saggy skin, thin fat, crepey skin, and normal weight obesity. And it's an important term now because anyone like myself who is within their safe BMI weight range, but still has fat where there should be muscle and muscle mass, they are dealing with skinny fat. And so if you have skinny fat when you are within your safe BMI weight range, including normal weight obesity, you have the same general risks as if you had obesity. So skinny fat is a big deal. And yet it's still something that in any of the scientific studies that you find up online that talk about, we did this scientific study on these obese people and we showed that they lost their fat weight, but then in the process, they also lost muscle and muscle mass. Well, what they really lost was the muscle and the muscle mass that the body itself had created to help carry all the extra fat weight. And then when all that extra fat weight was gone, then it burned off all the poor quality muscle and muscle mass that it had built to help carry all that weight. So we have studies like that. And I still have professionals who are referencing those studies saying, see, I told you that the body burns muscle and muscle mass during weight loss. Well, not really. I mean, it did, but it wasn't default body mass that was already on your body from day one. It was muscle mass that was added to help carry all that extra fat weight. And it's the same thing with so many other studies that they talk about lean mass versus non-lean mass. Well, what does that mean? Right now, if I look at my Apple health app, because I'm well within my safe BMI weight range, it says I have so much lean body mass, but I don't. I still have skinny fat on my body, and it is most certainly not lean. But according to all these studies and all these apps, skinny fat is being included in that in terms of lean body mass, and it is most certainly not lean body mass. Is that making sense?
Yes, yes. And, you referred to the BMI several times, and I've heard, in the last few years that the BMI was never meant to be used how we use it nowadays.
Right.
But yet, here's and this was something I saw on TikTok the other day, and it was a woman. I don't troll TikTok very often, but there was this woman talking about how she was a healthcare provider, a nurse, and that she had had 2 patients come in that were overweight. And one of them said, well, the reason you're overweight is because you're fat, and the only way you're going to get rid of it is have bariatric surgery. And the other one just basically said, well, you're obese and you're going to be obese. There was no compassion, nothing. And it's like, just because somebody is overweight does not mean there's not a health issue. That doesn't mean that their body type, like you're talking about, is going to fit those normal parameters. And if the BMI is not really meant to be the end all be all, why has it become that?
Well said. So let's talk about the 3 mainstream science and medical doctors body type standards. So the first standard is the standard body type 1, the standard scientific human body anatomy book body type 1 that you find in any standard scientifically approved human body anatomy book. Again, it's that image in your mind eye with the human body and all the muscles and muscle mass are fully developed. That is the image that when you go and see your doctor, when anyone goes and sees their doctor, that is what your body is being judged by. Yeah, we know that it is a scientific fact, a genetic fact that any part of the human body can be underdeveloped to whatever degree. That includes muscle and muscle mass. So that is the first standard and why it's not accurate. The second standard is the body mass index. It became the standard in 1985, albeit it's been around since the 1800s, but it is not accurate because, one, it does not take into account skinny fat. It does not calculate in any skinny fat whatsoever. So again, if you're someone like me who is within their safe BMI weight range, but I'm lacking muscle and muscle mass, I have skinny fat in place of that because of my genetics, yet that's not being calculated in. And that another reason why the BMI is not accurate is because it is very possible to have excess muscle mass on your body, like Dwayne Johnson, the Rock. That dude's all muscle. If you were to run his BMI, he likely would fall into the overweight or obese columns of his BMI, but he's most certainly neither of those things. So that is the second standard and why it is not accurate. And there are likely other reasons why, but that's good enough for the time being. The third standard is the basal metabolic rate, BMR. That is the number of calories daily that your specific body requires just to function. And that standard is not accurate because it too does not take into account skinny fat. Science recognizes that 1 pound of muscle mass burns 6 calories daily. 1 pound of skinny fat or fat only burns 2 to 3 calories daily. So if you are dealing with skinny fat on your body like me, then your body is burning less calories daily than what your BMR says that it is. Thus, you don't need as many calories as your scientifically calculated BMR says that you need. So those are the 3 body type standards that mainstream science and medical doctors use and why they are not accurate. I'll sort of pause here and see if I'm making sense.
You're making total sense. And to add to this is you also have to look at the genetic makeup of people that you're not going to have the same body type. I mean, I have German heritage in me, so I am broad-shouldered, narrow-hipped. That's not normal for a woman. A woman's supposed to have childbearing hips, so that's what I'm saying. You don't look at, when we look at this chart, we're not looking and going, well, wait a second. When somebody says big boned, everybody's like, oh, that just means you're fat. No, right. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
But nobody sees that. I mean, the 80s was a blessing because shoulder pads were great for me, but I already looked like a linebacker beforehand. But right. The fact is, people are big bone. We give people that are petite a pass. We can recognize right. Petite, but larger boned people, you don't. And we don't take that into consideration with the weight charts.
And that is the importance of genetics, right? Because it really is your genes. And yet, as you just said, these charts and these calculations are not taking into account such things. And I'm not knocking our scientific standards right now.
I know.
I'm truly not. They are not accurate and they need to be made better. And that's what we're working on doing, is making them better. So exactly. We're bringing forward the science so that everyone can understand their body type. They can accept their body type for what it is. We can stop all this nonsense up on social media in general, where there's this ideal body type and everyone has to meet that ideal body type. And if you don't, then you're not good enough, quote unquote. And it's all nonsense. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I would love to have a body type 1. I would love to be, the David Beckham who gets all of the hot women. Yeah, but that wasn't me. And that's not many people. And we have to come to terms with who we are, what our body type is in terms of our genetics, then find the best diet, exercise, and lifestyle for our specific body type so that we can be truly healthy in the short and long term. That's the goal of our science. That's what we are doing. So how are we doing that? Well, when I was trying to figure this out, when I was in high school, I started lifting weights. I worked extremely hard to add muscle and muscle mass to my body. And no matter what I did, it was just nearly impossible because I had so much skinny fat on my body. And obesity is common in our family. So when I got to college, I was hanging out with a group of friends and they were all body type 1s. They were all muscle and they were all ripped. And I was determined to figure out what's going on. So I followed their diet. I followed their exercise routine and I did all their supplements and I did everything that they were doing. And I watched my body go from being a sparrow's chest to a raven's chest, just a larger bird chest with skinny fat still all over me, no matter how hard I worked. And they just got more and more ripped and just more bulked up. And I was just beyond frustrated at that point. And that is when I left college, I took a job in the short term at CU Boulder doing scientific research. And I realized rather quickly, I didn't want to work for anyone else. So I opened up Fellow One Research and I've been doing the body type science ever since. And what we found is that if we look at the body from just a logical and reasonable point of view, we know that the structure and the scaffolding of the human body is the bones and the spine and the vertebrae, no less. But if we look at those vertebrae and we understand that scientifically, genetically, that it is a fact that every vertebra houses a specific set of muscles. And again, it is a scientific fact that any muscle can be developed. We know that directly affects our posture and our metabolism. So we broke down our body types relative to that structure and the vertebrae in the back, because we know that there are 26 vertebrae. There are 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 1 coccyx, and 1 sacrum. Sacrum and then coccyx. But we broke it down into a body type 1 is just a body type 1. It is that image that you see again in any scientific anatomy book, and that is a body type 1. And it just is what it is. Body type 2 has 1 to 8 underdeveloped vertebrae in terms of muscle and muscle mass. And in place of that underdeveloped muscle and muscle mass is skinny fat. A body type 3 is 9 to 17, and a body type 4 is 18 to 26. And that's how we broke down our body type so that we could start to scientifically understand, with your type of body type, it sounds like you might be a body type 3. I wouldn't know for sure unless you took the actual scientific body type quiz, but that's what it sounds like. And there's a reason why your body is that way. It is your genetics, and that is our breakdown of how we came to our 4 body types.
And I agree. I mean, a lot has to do with, I can look at a picture of my great grandmother, and yeah, I have a lot of her body type. and no matter what you do, it's like, that's one thing, because I lost my mom at an early age, and when you lose your parents at an early age, you don't look at their medical history. You don't really dig deep. And it's like, darn, I wish I would have done that, because she was in her 40s, and that would have given me a heads up of what could be the case. But we're not taught to look at our parents genetically. Yes, it's a question every time you go to the doctor, but we don't fully get all that history from them, because a lot of the times they don't want to share that history.
Well said. I know that my parents didn't. And when I first approached them around age 10 and actually asked them about all this weird fat and skinny fat all over my body, to them it was just normal, because again, obesity is normal in our family. And so they didn't see anything wrong with it. It was just normal, but it's not normal. But it is important to understand that obesity is not just folks being lazy and eating too much. There is definitely that actual quality, or those are definitely variables in play here. But there are people like me who have worked very hard my entire life to be within my safe BMI weight range. I haven't been, lazy or eating too much. And yet I've dealt with normal weight obesity my entire life. And that literally carries with it the same general risks as obesity, because I have too much fat on my body, even when I'm within my safe BMI weight range. So what science and doctors are starting to wake up to. There was a nice letter from a doctor from Emory University on Yahoo the other day, and it was an open apology to all the folks like me who doctors basically poo-pooed, and they would simply say, if you have problems with too much fat on your body, even when you're within your safe BMI, you must be somehow cheating on your diet, exercise, or lifestyle. It's somehow your fault. It can't have anything to actually do with your genetics or such, because we just don't see it that way, when that's exactly what it has to do with. And doctors are just starting to wake up to what we have known here at Fellow One Research since no less than 2003. And yet, as I sit here now, it's still an arduous uphill battle trying to get folks to understand that your body type matters. Your scientific body type matters. Understanding the skinny fat on it matters, because where you have skinny fat, you will likely have tendencies to put on fat weight very easily, which obviously will affect your diet, exercise, and lifestyle, yada, yada. It all affects each other, and it all matters. And yet, again, doctors and scientists are just starting to wake up to these truths, and they're stopping blaming their actual patients for either being lazy or just not working hard enough, when that's not the case. So hopefully it gets better, but that's what our science is trying to actually do, is bring that knowledge forward so that we can stop all of the nonsense and actually help people get healthy.
Well, that's an important thing. When you look at our diets in the United States, we are tended. Fast food has become very much the norm and very easy to deal with. And it's cheaper than going to the grocery store. So how do you argue that, well, maybe if you were eating healthier, well, if you can't afford to feed your family by eating healthy, and I'm not saying that I haven't had fast food in 2 years, but it still doesn't mean that you're going to be 100% healthy. And you still have to make good choices at the grocery store. And between food deserts and some of the stuff that we put in our food supply that's not allowed in Europe, there's questionable resources for how healthy we can truly be if our food supply is not good.
Amen. And that is a gigantic worry on our part, is right now, none of the corporations that are peddling the fast junk and processed foods are paying any consequences. There's no tax for that nonsense, even though we tax cigarettes and alcohol and all the other things that we know damage the human body and human health. We know for a fact now that these fast, processed, and junk foods all damage the human body. It is common, it is regular, it is most people are eating it every day. And I would actually argue with you that fast food is cheaper. So I hadn't eaten any fast food in like a decade. And just to break my fast food fast and just to go and see what it was all about, I went down to Wendy's the other day and I got a Dave single, and it was $6.18 with tax, just the Dave single burger.
But did you see, here's the thing. If you go on their budget menu.
Right. Which is Coke and fries, right?
The smallest burger you could possibly get.
Right. And so what you're really getting is the smallest burger possible, which is mostly bun, mm-hmm. and other sugar nonsense, which is the ketchup, and all of it's just basically sugar. And then the fries, which is basically just sugar. And then the soda, which is basically just sugar, right? It's all just sugar. It's all just really high glycemic index carbohydrates, which is what is driving the obesity epidemic. It's what's driving folks to not be able to actually lose weight, because it's all just terrible for the body in general. If we could educate folks, I can go down to Trader Joe's and I can get a pound of grass-fed organic ground meat for $7.49, right? So basically for the same amount as that one burger at Wendy's, which was probably not even a quarter pound of meat and all the rest of it was sugar nonsense, I can get a pound of really high quality meat and then make a really good meal out of that. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily inexpensive, because I know that you can get non-grass-fed and non-organic meat for like $5 or even cheaper.
But it's not as healthy. And I get what you're saying. My point was, if they're hitting the budget menu, and I'm going to be honest, my very first job was at McDonald's, and we didn't take credit cards. We had one window. That was it. There was not the big hoopla. And you can see how, as this epidemic has grown, how now we take credit cards. Now we have the lane split. Now we have automation doing half the job that the worker was doing beforehand.
Right.
And it's, and I live in a small town, and we now have a Burger King. We have a Culver's, which is a upscale burger joint. And we have a McDonald's. And I guarantee you that there is a line for people wanting to get into McDonald's almost every day. And I'm just like, and we have a 2-lane road with a turn lane, and it's like, how 2-lane highway with a turn lane, how do you have this line going into McDonald's?
Right.
It's not good, especially if you walk away from there, don't have it for a while, and you go back.
Well, so it's not a hard fix either. The easiest way to fix this is to apply a healthcare tax to any of this type of food, right? Because then when you go in and you buy that food, you're already paying your healthcare, and everyone's already paying that healthcare. So when you do get sick, when you do get obese, and you get diabetes, and you get heart disease and all the other things that come with eating such terrible food, at least you've already paid your healthcare insurance. It should be the same thing for anything that is sugar food. There was a sugar tax on the ballot here recently in Santa Fe, and it was voted down handily because people were furious that you wanted to tax their sugary drinks. Yet when you looked at the images of most of the folks down on the plaza or at the actual roundhouse who were protesting it, most of them were obese people, right? And so I believe in being an American and being free and making your own choices and living your life as you want. But I also believe in being responsible and there being consequences to your actions. So if we're going to sell all this food, then there should be a consequence to it, and that should be a simple healthcare tax that you're always paying every time you go and buy something, and it just goes into a healthcare fund so that we can at least help cover the outrageous healthcare tax in our broken healthcare system right now that nobody can really afford. It doesn't really help anyone because you yada yada yada. So hopefully we wake up as citizens and our government wakes up, but that's not likely because we both know that up on Capitol Hill there's the lobbyists and all the folks who have all of the power, and they don't want to pay a healthcare tax on their food because that will raise the actual price of their food.
Although it might have its benefits because then it's something else they can go raid.
Right.
But I was going to say, we're talking about eating healthy food. Everybody's like, oh, well, yogurt's really good for you. Yogurt's really great. Some yogurt is really good. Most yogurt, the sugar content is as much as a piece of fruit, if not more.
Amen.
and people just, well, I'm eating healthy. I'm eating yogurt. Are you really? And then you have the other caveat is, I'm eating yogurt. It's the low fat kind. It's the low sugar kind, but it's got aspartame in it. And what is aspartame?
Right. It's nonsense. It's not healthy for you whatsoever. I just recently at 47 developed a serious whey allergy so I can't eat dairy anymore, which is just awful because I loved my yogurt and oatmeal. I would basically just in a glass jar put oatmeal and then just plain old really healthy yogurt and wake up in the morning and have it. Was just wonderful, but I can't do any of that. And I was looking for substitutes in terms of soy or cashew, and they all are just loaded with sugar. It's just nonsense.
Actually, I found one today it is so delicious. It's an unsweetened vanilla that has 1 gram of sugar, and it's made with coconut milk.
What's the brand? And I'll go check it out.
So delicious.
So delicious. Cool. Thank you. Because I love my yogurt. I just So anyways, what I am hoping is that folks begin to wake up to what the science says, because the science is really how we're going to make things better. And we don't claim that our science is written in stone. We don't claim that our body types are written in stone. We had to start somewhere and break things down and start somewhere. But science is always evolving. It as new data, new evidence and facts roll in, we are always open to changing our mind and changing our resources up on our website. But if we're not going to follow the science, then we're not going to see things get any better. So up on our website, you can take our scientific body type quiz. You can use our scientific weight loss diary. We have a basic and an advanced. The advanced comes with access to our Ask Gnosis section, which is our expert science-based diet, exercise, and lifestyle team, of which I basically edit all of the comments that come through Ask Gnosis. So you're basically talking with me. But we do have diet and exercise pros who will come in, yada, yada. Anyways, you can use those. Our weight loss diary is not in competition with MyFitnessPal or Calorie King or the Apple Health app. All those work wonderfully, symbiotically in harmony with our diary. The point of our diary is to hold people accountable. You can use a pen name. There are no face images in terms of the body type quiz, so that you can maintain your privacy and security. But the idea is it's a place where you can track everything in terms of your scientific diet, exercise, and lifestyle data. You can invite your friends and family, your trainer or dietitian. Everyone can track your data there and encourage your actual progress, yada, yada, so that you can actually scientifically watch your body change over time and understand it. And once you have lost that weight, if you don't look like a body type 1, you can understand why. And you're not, trying to starve your body or trying to do crazy things so that you can look like a body type 1, like they're doing up on social media. You can just accept your body for what it is, especially once you're down within your safe BMI weight range, like I am. And I have come to accept my body as it is, so that you can actually be healthy. We can all be healthier and hopefully overcome this obesity epidemic, and in general, the global health crisis that we're dealing, because there's also the mental health crisis with young people, yada, yada. And all of it stems from a general lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. And that's what science does, is it helps bring forward the knowledge so that we can all make better choices in our life.
Well, and something I want to talk to you about is you're talking about social media and the young people that it affects as far as weight. And the thing is, even before social media, as a woman, a young girl in the 80s, you were presented with fashion magazines and ideals of what you're supposed to look like.
Right.
So, I mean, even before social media, I mean, even before me, I'm sure back in the 50s and 60s, you were supposed to look a certain way, especially if you're a woman. And this is why I think we have such the diet culture we do too. I mean, I kind of applaud some of the ladies that are a little bit more curvaceous now, that are willing to put themselves on social media and say, this is me, like it or not. And I mean, I know that they may not be healthy for some people, and that's fine, but they're willing to accept themselves. And I think that's a huge, huge thing.
It is
accepting yourself.
Amen. And that's what we are striving for. And the only thing that I would say on that is that the body positive movement, we support, but we don't want people to use it as a way to say that obesity is normal and to normalize the disease of obesity. So there's a fine line that we are walking there. We want people to realize that not everyone is a body type 1. I'm not. I wish I was. I'm not. And it just is what it is. But I also didn't say, well, like so many of my family members who were like, well, this is just how God made me.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it. So now they're 300, 400, 500 pounds, which is not healthy whatsoever,
no.
Which directly affects healthcare costs and the healthcare system, yada, yada, yada. There's got to be a balance. So
right.
we won't tolerate fat shaming, trolling, hating, or bullying of any kind. None of that helps anyone. And if you're doing it, please stop. On the other hand, I've been out on social media, and I have been bullied and trolled by the body positive movement because they refuse to actually look at our science and realize that what we're talking about is we're not judging bodies by saying, if you're not a body type 1, you're no good. If you're a body type 2, you're not as good as body type 1. We're not saying any of that. We're simply bringing forward the scientific knowledge so that you can understand what your real body type is. But instead, when we go out on social media, we get trolled literally, honestly, just as hard by the body positive movement as the body positive movement claims that they're being trolled by all the folks who say that your body should be a body type 1. So there's this hypocrisy that's going on, and it's simply all stems from a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding of what is and what isn't. That's what we're trying to do, is clarify that with science.
Well, and that's one thing about social media. Everybody can be a bully with a keyboard. We don't have
right.
to give an icon. We don't have to say our name. We can just troll you and say whatever we want. I got trolled once when I was doing a live podcast because apparently I had a filter on, because my skin looked like I had a filter on. And I'm like, I do not have a filter. So somebody started this in the comments, and this grew in the comments about whether I had a filter on or not. I'm like, I have no filter. It's lighting and makeup, folks.
Yeah.
And it's the empowerment of it. And I understand what you're saying, because while the body positive movement is great, and I'm not being a hypocrite, folks, I think it's great that women can finally say, this is who I am, and I accept me for who I am. That being said, being an older person, I also understand the ramifications of health issues.
Yeah.
And my husband, who will be gone 2 years this week, he was diagnosed type 1 diabetic when he was 19. Oh, and wow. He was proud. He lost 100 pounds. He did really good. And he met somebody, a guy who he worked with, who's like, oh, you want a donut? I'll teach you how to eat that donut and still work your sugars. My husband would tell you, if he were still alive today, that he was the poster boy for a bad diabetic. And I went through, and I'm going to say this because this is important for people that are thinking, well, sugar's not that bad. Poster boy for a bad diabetic. He had 3 retinal reattachments. He had a quadruple bypass. He did not lose any limbs, but he had hammer toe surgery on both of his feet. So his toes could never bend again. He had dialysis he was on several times. I mean, he had 7 stents for his heart before, and then he had the quadruple bypass, and then he got some more stents. So plus he was on BiPAP, so he had sleep apnea, and I mean, then he had a stroke in his eye, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something here.
Yeah.
But my whole point is, was that donut worth it?
Was it worth it? And I have given up. I gave up sugar a decade ago. I've given up so much in my life to be healthy, because I believe that being healthy is one of the only things that we humans truly own, is our health. And to be honest with you, I actually am sort of the poster child for being too healthy, for not living the rule of moderation. Because I was doing a low sodium diet of about 1,000 milligrams a day, and I was doing a really heart healthy diet, and my blood pressure got down to 90/50, which is too low.
Yeah.
Right.
He had that too. So go
right.
ahead. Yeah.
And so what I'm getting at is that it's moderation. You've got to find a balance in your life. And I'm now finding my way back to a state of balance, to where, like I said, I went down and I had a fast food burger the other day, and I broke my fast food fast, because it's about balance. It's about living life and allowing yourself, the pleasures of life, but realizing that most of your diet is going to stem from a healthy diet. It's going to likely be, we push the Blue Zone Mediterranean diet because there's a lot of science that backs it up. It's a heavy vegetarian focused diet, but you can still eat meat. You can still eat the things that you want. It's just a lot less in terms of refined foods, processed foods, junk foods, and fast foods, yada yada. So, but that's life. And if we want to make our life as good as we can, then we start with our health. And the way that we start with our health is we have to understand, what is our body type? What are our genes? And what is the best diet, exercise, and lifestyle for that body type? And the only way that we can do that is by actually understanding that out there. And not a single one of them
It was me. It was my internet.
Oh, no, that's good.
Anyway, you were talking. You froze, and I disappeared.
I'm sorry.
No,
sorry.
It's not your fault. It's the internet. So you were talking about that you had to find balance, and that each program has to be for a different. It has to be tailored for you.
It does. And the only way that it can really be tailored for you is if you can really understand what your body type is, right? I mean, to understand my own diet, first I had to understand, I've got all this skinny fat all over my body. What does that mean? It means that that my metabolism is negatively affected, because with a lack of muscle mass, I'm not burning as many calories daily. So I need to reevaluate my standard BMR calculations. And, so we, up on the site, in terms of our scientific body type quiz, we offer the standard BMR, but we also offer the adjusted BMR, so you can get a better sense of the skinny fat that is on your body, so that you can eat the amount of calories that are likely more accurate relative to your specific body type. Now, that being said, I'll be honest, I have never, ever, ever counted calories, ever. I just had a general sense of, I would look at my meals during the day, and I would make sure that they were as packed full of fruits and vegetables as possible, right? Keeping the sugar as low as possible, keeping the fiber as high as possible, because that's what we're really looking for. Is what the science really says nowadays, that a low carb diet is really where it's at. And the actual bullseye that the most recent studies have shown is at 37 grams of carbs per day. And so in terms of getting those 37 grams, most of it needs to be fiber. And so that's a tough thing. And this is in the process of losing weight. Once you've lost the actual weight, you can tweak that as needed. But in the process of losing weight, if you do lower carbs, then you're forcing your body to burn the fat that's on it. And of course, using the calories that you are consuming daily. But even then, the body will have a tendency to burn more fat if the calories that you are consuming are high quality lean meats and high quality fats like olive oil and flax oil. Then again, the body will be forced to burn the fat on your body, and the science really does back this up. And of course, once you get down to 37 grams of carbs a day, you are really into a keto diet. So you can call it whatever you want. I usually just stick with a low carb diet, because the keto diet, when I think of the keto diet, I think of more of a high fat diet, and my body just doesn't do well with high fat.
Well, let's be honest. Before it was keto, it could have been called Atkins. Oh,
may have lost you again.
That's okay. Are you still there? You were there. No, you're not.
I wonder if that's me.
No, I don't know who it is. Are you there now?
I am.
Okay. What I was going to say is it's my internet. I can see it says your internet connection is unstable. Atkins was keto before keto was cool. You know,
right.
I mean, we've just,
right.
And it's like, there's a certain diet plan I will not mention. I was on that for a while, and yes, I did lose weight, but the whole fact of the matter, it's not sustainable, because chicken still has calories to it. A chicken breast still has calories, even though we're saying it doesn't. So, you know, you can't live like that.
And again, what the most recent science shows is that counting calories really is not where it's at. Keeping calories at a deficit really isn't where it's at, because the human body will go into So don't count calories. Don't do a calorie deficit. Stick with a low carb diet and allow the body to refocus its efforts in terms of burning the fat that it already has on it, so that you can lose that weight. Once you've lost that weight, then it will be a process of figuring out, do I stick with this low carb diet, or can I add more carbs, yada, yada. But it's a process. And so there are all these diets out there. And I personally have tried every diet under the sun, and what that led me to was hating diets, right? Because I just don't find a lot of value in the diet itself. What I find value in is the actual nutrients. So understanding the macronutrients and the micronutrients, the proteins and the fats and the carbohydrates, and the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants. And then once you understand all that, then it's essentially figuring out meals during the day that you really enjoy, that are based on as much vegetarian focus as possible. But I did a vegan diet for a while. I did a vegetarian diet. Neither of them worked well for my body. I do a lot of vegetables, and I still do a little bit of red meat, and I do a lot of chicken. So anyways, the diet culture here in this country, and probably worldwide, but I'm more versed in it in this country, is out of control. And there's a lot of people who say we need to get rid of the term diet. I don't think that that's necessarily the solution either. It's just understanding the diet that you choose to actually eat should really be based on the macro and micronutrients and the type of food, the quality of the food that you are choosing to eat.
And then that's right for you. That's going to,
right.
Because, there's certain things, we'll go back to the thyroid issue. There's certain vegetables. Now this is the old conversation of, even with the eggs, even with eggs, because one study says eggs are great for you. The next study says eggs are not.
That's
Same
right.
thing with thyroid. You should avoid nightshades. Oh, well, no, you can have nightshades. Oh, no, you shouldn't. You really, what it comes down to is sometimes your body does not react well with certain foods. Corn is a good inflammation raiser for a lot of people, but yet it's almost in everything we eat.
Yeah, right. And it's work to figure out the diet that works best for you. And that's one of the hurdles that we have faced. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here now. Okay. You were talking about one of the hurdles you had faced.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's work. This is work. There is no magic pill. There is no one diet that fits everyone. And so it's why we have, if you go up on our site and go to our store, you can see our scientific weight loss program. And we have a full list of all the diets there, from just a vegetarian omnivore down to Atkins, down to paleo, whatever. They're all there because what we're encouraging is a low carb diet, especially if you are losing weight. But even then, there are some people who just, I don't want to do a low carb. Fine. You can do whatever you want. The idea is to actually see real results. It's why you can track everything in our diary. You can actually see it all unfold. You can see all your diary entries. You can see your actual weight and your actual images and everything day to day as it passes. You can see your actual progress. But we're not pushing one specific diet over the other necessarily, because, as you just said, it's really specific to the individual. And eggs, as you just said, I actually started doing eggs again in my diet, even though in the last week, I've read 3 studies that one says that they're great and the other says that they're not, and the third, it didn't really know. So I don't really know anymore. I do know that I was watching CNN the other day, and there was this 115-year-old woman on there, and she's eaten 3 eggs every day of her life for 115 years, and she's lived to 115. So whatever.
But see, that also goes back to your genetics, because when you're talking about cholesterol, that is a genetic thing.
It is.
And nobody really knows that. They're always like, well, cholesterol is based on this. No, my dad used to take a steak and then put butter on it, and his cholesterol was just fine.
Yeah, right on.
So, I mean, it all depends on your body and how you handle things. One thing I will say, and I know I was on a low-fat diet back when I was in my early 20s, and then I decided to go off of that, and I had a high-fat burger. And I will say I had a gallbladder reaction. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, especially like with gastric bypass. People lose a lot of weight and then they end up having gallbladder issues, because if you slip and have that high fat, your body doesn't know how to react anymore.
Right. I definitely cannot do high fat because my gallbladder will just scream. Mm-hmm. It does not like it whatsoever. But I've learned that over the years.
You've learned that over the years.
Yeah. So I basically just have learned that putting in the work to figure out what works for your body in terms of the food that you eat is where it's at. That's what it's really all about. Stop being lazy, please. I was just up on Facebook prior to joining your show, and all there are is folks up there who are looking for some sort of quick fix, a pill, anything, so that they can lose weight really quickly. And that's not how it works. There is no pill. There will never be a pill that helps you lose weight safely. It may help you lose weight, but you're going to find that there are these terrible, yada, yada, yada. Please just do the work. And that's, again, it's one more reason why we built the Scientific Weight Loss Diaries, because it's a place where we know it's work. We know that it's not a lot of fun sometimes, but that's just the nature of it. If you can at least track it all in one place and invite your friends and family, and they can come on and they can encourage you, and see your actual progress. Then you can at least realize that you are making progress, and yada yada, so that it hopefully makes it worthwhile. So yeah.
Well, I thank you, Marc, for coming on to a very insightful conversation. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention?
Oh, I think I mentioned our scientific body type quiz and the weight loss diary up on the site. There is a book. It's called Overprivileged White Guy, and I named it that. I realize that it's a bit of a risque name, but I couldn't imagine being born in a body type 4 like I was. When I left home and got out into the world, I had no sense of how privileged I really was as a white dude. And I couldn't imagine how much more difficult my life would have been had I not been a white dude. So that's why I named it the name I named it. But it's actually the story of my journey. It talks about the science, but it's not written in boring science jargon. It's actually written in novel format, so you can understand, how I came to the science, yada, yada. So that's up on the site. And then of course you can find us up on social media. We have 2 different types of accounts. There's the 4 body types, which we're basically just talking about all the science relative to. But then we also have a few Ask Gnosis accounts, I believe, up on Twitter and Facebook. So if you don't have the
if you don't have the
right. If you don't have the resources to buy the advanced weight loss diet, or even do a single credit for the Ask Gnosis, you can go up on social media, up on Twitter or Facebook, and you can ask us questions there. Just please keep in mind that we are very busy, and we'll get to as many as we can, but it is a place where you can go and ask science-based diet, exercise, and lifestyle questions to our expert support team. So thank you very much for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming.